Владимир Путин убил Алексея Навального.
A new twist in the grim tale of Alexei Navalny's death. In this video, the chair of Navalny's anti-corruption foundation alleges Russia's most vocal opposition figure was due to be set free in exchange for this hitman, currently in jail in Germany. But then, they claim, Vladimir Putin got cold feet and ordered Navalny to be killed.
Alexei Navalny
could have been sitting in my place right now. This is not a figure of speech. This could and should have happened. Navalny was supposed to be set free in the coming days.
Also due to be freed in this purported deal, 2 Americans held in Russian jails, believed to be Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich and former Marine Paul Whelan.
I appreciate all the time you've given us.
In a fawning interview with right-wing former Fox News commentator Tucker Carlson earlier this month, Vladimir Putin hinted at negotiations to release the Americans.
The special services are in contact with one another. They're talking about this subject. There is no taboo on discussing this issue. It can be solved, and we're willing to solve it.
Navalny's name was never mentioned, and the truth around any deal is hard to decipher. Russian officials insist Navalny died of natural causes whilst imprisoned in an Arctic penal colony. His mother has now finally been given possession of his body, but the authorities seem determined to prevent a public funeral. They're worried about any show of defiance ahead of presidential elections next month. That defiance still on show in the form of figures like jailed British-Russian activist Vladimir Kara-Murza. We owe it to our fallen comrades to continue to work with even greater strength and achieve what they lived and died for, he says here, speaking from another penal colony. Kara-Murza was sentenced to 25 years in jail for criticizing the Russian invasion of Ukraine. He had campaigned for years for tighter sanctions on Putin's regime. This was him on a trip to the US 2 years ago.
And very quickly, Vladimir Putin began to go after independent media, began to go after opposition parties, began to rig elections, imprison opponents, then murder opponents.
Like Navalny, he had also been poisoned in the past before being jailed, leaving him with serious health issues. And there are fears he too may not survive his prison term.
Well, Evgenia Kara-Murza, wife of Vladimir, the jailed Russian political prisoner who saw at the end of that report, told me earlier how she fears for her husband in light of what happened to Alexei Navalny.
I have been fearing for my husband's life since 2015. I have been living with this fear, knowing that he is being constantly followed by some people working for the Russian state, some people who want to eliminate him physically. So I cannot say that the murder of Alexei Navalny has added to these fears. I've been living this for many, many years.
What do you know about his health at the minute?
Well, following the 2 assassination attacks on him, Vladimir developed a condition called polyneuropathy. That is, his peripheral nerve system has been damaged by these poisonings in the past. And of course, his state of health is not going to improve in the conditions of a solitary cell, a punishment cell, in which he's been kept for the last half a year. It feels like this is something the authorities are doing to make sure that the health of these people does indeed deteriorate so they can be killed slowly. And Vladimir is not the only one in such conditions nowadays.
You would like your husband to be involved in a prisoner swap. You think these things are possible with the right political will, is that right?
Well, I believe that those people who are held, whose lives are in constant danger, should be gotten out using any methods available. And yes, prisoner swap is one such method. And there is a list of political prisoners in the Russian penitentiary system, whose lives are in constant danger.
So you and your husband both hold Russian and British passports, but the UK government has said it will not countenance a prisoner swap. Asked directly about your husband's case. So what do you say to the UK government in response?
Well, honestly, I believe that this position of not engaging, not to give an incentive to those dictators to take more hostages, is unacceptable in a civilized world of the 21st century. Because you see, whether they engage or not, the number of hostages and political prisoners around the world is on the rise. And this is becoming a global crisis. The number of political prisoners in the world approaches 1 million people, and hostages are being taken every day, whether these governments engage or not. And so the only thing that such a position does is that it sends its own citizens a very bad message. Like, if you end up in such a situation, if you end up as a hostage of a dictator somewhere in the world, sorry, that's your problem. You're on your own. We do not engage. And I do not believe that this position is acceptable if we're talking about a democracy that is based on the value of the human life.
The UK government might say that engaging in a prisoner swap might encourage more hostage taking. I wonder, do you think the UK government is doing all it can to get your husband released?
I would love to see more concrete actions. I am grateful for the statements that are being made by the UK authorities. I'm grateful to them for continuously demanding consular access, although they are, of course, continuously denied that access. But I do not believe that in such a situation where human life is in danger, expressions of concern are enough. I would love to see more concrete measures, and I would love for the position of the UK government with regard to hostages and political prisoners to change.
Evgenia Kara-Murza, thank you very much for speaking with us.
Thank you very much for inviting me.